Hello again, my name is Joey McQuillan, and we'll discuss more about the history of Adolphe Sax and what happened after he left to Paris and having higher-ups of instrument development and production in Belgium drag him down and getting absolutely nowhere in his improvement in ideal instrument craftsmanship and musical experience. Adolphe Sax arrived at Paris, France in 1842 so he could be successful inside the city popularized for its musical genius. Although he had a plan for getting far into Paris and what he can do to become a popular musician, he had little money and was trying to get any attention from anybody that could take a look at Adolphe's works of instrument making. So, Adolphe asked a famous French composer, Hector Berlioz, who made newspaper articles, take a look at the instrument that Adolphe Sax made, and later on, June 12, 1842, Berlioz made the article discussing Adolphe's craftsmanship to be astounding and a wonderful wonder of instrument making. But after the highly glowing review from Berlioz, Adolphe Sax would have some troubles from other Parisian instrument makers, with these instrument makers making an organization to completely defile the Sax name in Paris and stop Adolphe in any way they could. As a result of the Berlioz article that gave Adolphe Sax the spotlight, he was given a chance to perform at a concert in the Paris Conservatoire, which gave him an opportunity to show his musical talents and instrument making at the same time, and having been known in nearby areas of France and Belgium, the concert was a rousing success, with the funds he needed to start his instrument making business an easy endeavor. But trouble would still be a part of Sax's life. For when he had a famous Parisian musician named Don Sebastian using his bass clarinet models, which were better than most bass clarinets at the time, the other musician makers had the orchestra not play unless the person that used the bass clarinet, Don Sebastian, moved to a different bass clarinet because they were overall jealous and angered by the fact that Adolphe Sax had a better model than them. So, with that major problem Adolphe had of other people trying to make his life harder than it should be, he challenged people that tarnished his name and craftsmanship to public musical duels to test each musician's might in the knowledge of musical arts and the making of an instrument, and Adolphe frequently won these duels against other instrument makers that were trying to impede his progress. But let's go back to when Adolphe was trying to start in Paris. Adolphe Sax wanted to use his saxophones for the French military, since that would be an easy way to mass produce an instrument and require funds to do so, with a profit for himself along the way, and accessing a way to a patent or have the rights to the blueprints of the instruments he created, thus not being able to copy the instrument itself from people that you try and steal from Adolphe Sax's work. So, as Adolphe Sax was having the saxophone's physical appearance be kept a secret, the French military asked for a commission of instruments that could help their band, since they were overall bad at music, on February of 1845. 2 months after this announcement, the French military made a concert to decide what instruments would be commissioned as a part of the French military, and the ability to have a way to mass produce these commissions and make a lot of money on April 22nd, 1845. On that date, 2 bands performed at the concert, one band having basic instruments that had been previously used in the war front, while the other band was entirely made of modified instruments and the types of saxophones made specifically by Adolphe Sax, with both bands playing the same song, with a whopping 2,000 people watching over each concert and seeing and deciding which sort of band sounded better. After both bands played, Adolphe Sax's band won with no contest, and after 2 months, Sax won the concert. He was given the military contract that he wanted when he was going to Paris in the first place, and he could get his patent. But this wasn't the end of Sax's troubles, for when he won that military contract, his rivals were so furious over losing such a claim to fame, and from a person that was from a different country no less, that Sax's rivals made an entire organization to stop and slow down Adolphe Sax's progress for fame, fortune, and a peaceful life, calling themselves the Association of United Instrument Makers. And they started to sue Adolphe Sax to make him waste time, effort, and resources, for these lawsuits didn't have any real reason to sue other than the blinding hatred for Adolphe Sax and his instrument making. After constant lawsuits and utter time wasting the association has made against them, Sax withdrew his patent for the saxophone and let anyone else try and make something similar or better than his saxophone for an entire year. With no one being able to recreate his work in a year's time, Sax resubmitted his patent and it was accepted on June 2nd, 1846. Meaning he had the rights to his saxophone. The major problem for Sax now came 2 years later, when King Louis Philippe and his friends had to flee from the country in 1848, and with no friends in higher positions of power to keep his patents for the instruments he made in Paris, he was once again facing off against the Association of United Instrument Makers. The association took away Sax's military contract and a few patents that Sax had for other instruments, apart from the saxophone patent, which they still couldn't get out. But after 5 years of trying to get through these changes, Adolphe Sax surprisingly beat the association, and the French court made the association pay for the suffering they caused to Sax. But the association wasn't the major problem, since Sax had to pay a huge debt from a friend in 1850. Since his friend gave him a lot of money to keep going, Sax thought it was a gift and didn't think he needed to pay his friend back for the money. But when his friend died in 1852, the family of that friend noticed the huge amount of money that was given to Sax and demanded to give back the money in a day's time. But since Adolphe Sax didn't have that amount of money, he tried to run away to London, England. But surprisingly, he faced his problems head-on and had to file for bankruptcy and close down his instrument-making factory. But Adolphe Sax didn't give up. He surprisingly bounced back in 2 years, in 1854, by successfully being an instrument maker for Emperor Napoleon's troops, and had enough money to reopen his factory to make his instruments. But nearing the end of 1850, Sax had some sort of lip cancer that made him eat out of a tube and had to take 1859 experimental herbs and medicines to try and stop the growth of this lip cancer, which really worked after 6 months of the treatment, and it was entirely gone, with it being gone in February of 1860. Afterwards, Adolphe Sax was going steadily, and at 1887, at the age of 72, he made an article describing how the Association of United Instrument Makers overall ruined his life with frivolous and worthless legal battles, and that they were in the wrong, which the court accepted and gave him a sum amount of money so he could be set for the rest of his life. And then in 1894, Adolphe Sax died at the age of 79 and was buried in Paris. And with that, the end of a legacy. But with the original creator of the saxophone and its many other counterparts gone, where would the saxophone go now? Tune in next video in which we discuss where the saxophone went from 1894 to the 1920s. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe to ArtSphere for more updates for each video.